So I used to play guitar almost exclusively in alternate tunings, and I was really good at it. I played really well. I composed songs in alternate tunings and audiences loved it. I was popular. I was playing lots of concerts. I had original CDs, and people were mesmerized by, my technical ability in tapping and all that kind of stuff. But the truth is, I really hated it. I hated my identity as this alternate tuning fingerstyle guitarist, and it reached a point when I almost wanted to just put down the guitar and stop playing altogether because it was so bad. And it wasn't always like this, and I want to share with you what happened and how I got out of it and what I learned in the process. So many years ago, there was a point in my life when I decided with absolute certainty, I want to be a guitarist. But not just any guitarist, I wanted to be a good guitarist, an excellent one with technical mastery over his craft, his art, and most importantly, a unique one. And I just was really dedicated. I practiced 10 hours a day after day, week after week. And slowly but surely, I was reaching that goal. I was becoming really good at playing the guitar. However, at that time, there was an interesting phenomenon happening in the world of acoustic guitar, fingerstyle guitar playing. It was when Andy McKee's Drifting was exploding in popularity. It was going viral on YouTube, and budding guitarists all over the world were mesmerized by his unique or innovative technique of placing his left arm over the guitar fretboard and tapping out chords. And everyone thought it was really cool, and they were trying to imitate him, and I was one of them. Now, to achieve the proper effect of putting your left hand over the guitar neck and tapping out chords and looking incredibly cool while doing it, you had to retune your guitar. The simplest way is to just tune down the low E string to a low D, and then you can tap out power chords on it. But very often guitarists, including myself, would go way beyond that, and we would invent and create and use other tunings where we are changing almost all 6 strings, or at least 4 of these strings. And changing your guitar tuning in this way opened up a world of possibility of chord voicings and open strings and new melodies and new ways to play guitar that you never thought possible were you only in standard tuning. Now I dived headfirst into this world of alternate tunings and percussive guitar playing, and driven by my pursuit of excellence, I got really good at it. I persevered and I worked hard, and I was tapping out chords you wouldn't have imagined possible, and playing drums on the guitar and playing open strings and new chord shapes that you wouldn't have thought even existed on guitar were you only using standard tuning. And audiences were just mesmerized by my so-called groundbreaking, unique, avant-garde style of playing. And I guess, mind you, I was still a teenager then, so perhaps lapses in my technique and stage presence were more forgivable from my audiences. So before I even understood the fundamentals of standard tuning and guitar in general, I was so-called a master of over 10 alternate tunings because I had composed songs in these tunings. And my composition process was this. I just took the guitar, I tuned it to some crazy unheard of tuning. I just noodle around on the guitar, find stuff that sounds good. I didn't know what I was doing, and I just put pieces together and I formed songs. And I got really good at this process, and I guess I am still very fond of some of the music that I've created from that stage in my musical journey, and I still play them today. But that was all. It had a lot of emotional baggage attached to it. Because I realized that in order to play one song, I had to first retune the entire guitar to fit that particular tuning. And once I was in that tuning, I could only play that song. And not only that, I could only play that song from point A, which is the beginning, to point B, which is the end. I didn't have the scope or the ability or expertise to be able to venture beyond that, because it was just certain shapes that followed one after another. I had no understanding of the music behind it. So they were essentially just a series of buttons that I had to press on the guitar fretboard that created these music, and that was it. So I began to feel like a machine, and I dreaded performing. Every performance was a nerve-wracking nightmare, and I was so anxious, and I didn't enjoy it at all, because aside from countless strings breaking on stage due to tuning the strings each time, I was also unable to curate my set list the way I wanted to, because the set list, the way the songs were arranged, were dictated almost 90% by how the tunings were arranged. Songs had to be arranged next to each other based on the tunings that they were in. And I lost the artistic freedom to curate the musical setlist to tell the story that I wanted to tell as a musician. And I found myself incapable of spontaneous music making. I was only able to just play, go through the motions, go through the muscle memory that I had practiced for countless hours. And that was it. I was like a machine. But I think the most devastating thing that happened to me was that I lost self-confidence. In fact, I was void of self-confidence as a musician, let alone a professional one, someone who was actually pursuing music as a career, as a path in life. And I was practicing so long, but I couldn't do anything beyond those 10 songs. I couldn't improvise, I couldn't jam. I just felt so stuck, and I only could play those 10 songs. And that was it. I couldn't express myself. I couldn't tell the stories I wanted to tell. Yes, I enjoyed playing guitar, but I think it really broke me. It really broke my confidence, and it made me feel that I was not truly a musician. I was not worthy of being called a professional musician, and it was really, really bad. Thought that maybe I just achieved this so-called success because I look cool putting my left hand over the fretboard and hitting the guitar like a drum. It was all theatrical. It was what I thought in my head. So eventually I decided I'm gonna stop, and I stopped entirely. I couldn't go on like this. I cast my guitar aside, I cast my music aside, and I stopped playing. I took on a job for 2 years in a non-music profession, which actually thankfully allowed me the time to still work on my music. And this was important because my mental health was at stake, my career was at stake, my identity was at stake. I was beginning to lose myself. And I tuned my guitar to standard tuning, and I never ventured beyond it. It stuck. And I began to search out musical styles around the world that were specifically improvisational in nature. And I landed up exploring styles in jazz, Carnatic music, flamenco music, and I began to take lessons in all these three styles, very specifically because I wanted to become the musician that I really wanted to be, and not just a machine. And it was grueling, it was so painful because it felt like I was starting from scratch all over again, learning the instrument as though I had never touched it before in my life, although I was so-called a professional musician. But I loved music, and my passion kept me going, and I practiced, and I practiced, and I practiced. And through that practice, I realized how little I actually knew. I couldn't form basic chords in standard tuning, although I was playing all that fancy stuff before that. And after those 2 years, I left that job, and I was ready to be a musician again. I was ready to be the musician that I wanted to be. By no means am I perfect today. In fact, I'm far from it. I'm still working really hard to get better at my craft, but I'm not perfect. But today I have the confidence in my identity as a musician, as someone who knows and understands his craft, his art, his career, what I'm doing for a living, and what I love to do. And that's how I'm even able to tell this piece to you today, by improvising music to bring this story to life. And I couldn't do this if I weren't just stuck as a machine guitarist playing buttons, pressing buttons on the fretboard without any understanding at all. And now today I can tell stories through world music. I can share lived experiences of people I meet around the world, and I can connect communities and bring a smile to people's lives in very meaningful ways by using music. And I'm just so joyful that I actually took this step. And now, honestly, there's actually nothing wrong with alternate tunings. In fact, they're amazing, and many amazing, wonderfully talented and gifted musicians have used alternate tunings to remarkable effect, and they've created such amazing music and told amazing stories. And alternate tunings are great, and if you are a guitarist and you want to explore them, I fully encourage you to do so. But learning from my lessons, because what was wrong was the way I approached it, without any understanding, without knowing what I was doing musically. It was just, following tabs, following finger positions on the fretboard. I didn't know what I was doing. It was just pressing buttons. It was like a machine, and that's what you need to avoid. Because I was creating music for the sake of man's approval, of validating myself as an artist, as a musician. I wanted to just look cool or get applause and get appreciation, get approval basically. So it was the way I approached alternate tunings. Now today, I can actually fearlessly approach any of those alternate tunings with the confidence that I understand what those alternate tunings mean. Although I don't do it so frequently, but at least now I know. And I know that as a musician, I know what I'm doing. So if I have any advice that I want to give to you, if you're a musician yourself, don't just rely on tabs and just the fingering positions. Those are useful for learning, but you need to go beyond that. You need to actually understand the notes. You need to understand what the music is telling you and how those notes and these chords and whatever musical material you have in your piece of music, how they are arranged and why they are arranged in that way. Delve deeper. It's not just about pressing buttons on the guitar fretboard. It's about creating and telling a story, expressing yourself and creating art. So thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been a little bit eye-opening for you, and it certainly has been a pleasure to share my guitar journey with all of you. And yeah, all the best. Take care. Enjoy making music.